Welcome back to another one of our studies in Philippians. And today we're going to be looking at Philippians 10 and 11. So follow along as I read. I want to know Christ, yes, to know the power of his resurrection and participation in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, and so somehow attaining to the resurrection from the dead. Well, Paul's been leading up to this point. This is sort of the mission statement of his life. In fact, it's my life verse, these two verses. And he was talking, of course, first addressing the Judaizers and talking about the foolishness of them trying to get people more righteous by way of the Jewish law and ceremonies, and making that the criteria by which they were really fully saved. And he said, I had all that. I had all of it, and it didn't matter. And he said, in fact, I counted as dung, as we talked about last week. So now he comes to the conclusion, the positive side of this. He said, I want to know Christ. Now, that word know in the Greek is the same as in the Hebrew. And some of us who still use the King James Version will know that the Bible used the word know to talk about the sexual union between a husband and a wife. And the reason it was used that way is it meant that there was this intimate knowledge that no one else was supposed to have, at least, again, they shouldn't have had, that was only between a husband and a wife in their greatest moments of intimacy. And it was to know also, not just that way, but to know the motivations, to know everything about it. It was to know like a mother knows her child. Some of you who are mothers, or for certainly many fathers, out of a crowd of children, you can hear your child's voice. You can hear your child's cry, because you know your child. You know your child that well. And Paul is saying, I want to know Christ, so I'm so tuned into him, so that the relationship with us is so intimate that there's nothing else like that. I want to know him like that. Not these other things that have cluttered my life. I want to know him. I want to know Christ most of all. And he says, yes, to know the power of his resurrection. You think about the power that Christ showed, of course, during his earthly ministry, when he raised the dead and when he fed the 5,000 and when he cleansed the lepers and all of that. But Paul didn't want to know that kind of power. I mean, it was a great thing to think about. And you think about the times when Christ could have shown power. You think about Palm Sunday when he came in to the procession into Jerusalem, and everybody was cheering. Wouldn't that have been a time to show power? Or when Jesus was arguing with the teachers who were trying to bring him down, and he could have just banished them from life. That would have been a time to show power. Or what about actually when he got to the cross, and they said, if you are the Son of God, come down from there. How powerful it would look for him to pull his hands off of the cross and cast those spikes away and pull himself down and walk among them. What an amazing show of power that was. But no, that's not how Christ showed his power. He showed his power by dying and raising again. And what a wonderful thing that was. That was beyond anything anybody could have imagined, is that Christ coming back from the dead. Even though he told his disciples he was going to do it, they couldn't get it through their heads that was something he was going to do. They just couldn't get it. And they couldn't imagine it because it had never been done. And it reversed all the laws of creation to have someone who was dead, whose body immediately starts decaying at the point of death, to come back from the dead. And the power of that was not just the rolling the stone away, that was powerful, but that the dead flesh was reanimated and became not just like it was, but better. Remember, Jesus could pass through walls, and Jesus could appear and disappear and this kind of thing. And all of that was part of the power. And the power of this resurrection, he now passes on to us. He says, I want to know Christ and the power of his resurrection, because that's where my power of resurrection is. And then he says, and participation in his sufferings. We can't participate in being divine like Christ. None of us are divine. We are all human. We got that part. But we're not divine. We don't go back through eternity. We don't have the power to create from nothing. We have none of that. And we never will have any of that. But he said, I want to know him, and I want to participate not in his divinity, not in his eternity, not in his saving power, because only Christ can save. I want to participate in his sufferings. And that's something we can do. We can suffer for Christ. We can, in some way, identify with him when he placed himself in the place of being limited by being a human being, by going through the horrible death that he went through. And we, although we may not be crucified, we can choose to stand for him, and in standing for him, to suffer for him and with him. And just like Christ also suffered on behalf of others, we can suffer on behalf of others. We can give our lives and lay them down and give our time and our efforts and in a way bleed for other people. We can participate in his sufferings and become like him in his death. That is a death that is for others. And then he says, and so somehow attaining to the resurrection from the dead. The good news is what this body is like right now. This is not the end game. This is not it. It is for us, the more we grow in Christ, unfortunately, it comes over time. And the other side of that is our bodies decline. Our years, we know, are numbered and become less and less, even as we grow in our knowledge of him and serve him and love him. It's inevitable. It's the way it has to be. Even a baby, brand new baby, from the morning the baby is born, from that point on, there's less time and less time and less time. But we're told this, that when the Lord comes and the Lord comes back and raises us, that we will have resurrection bodies. What does that mean? It was something quite wonderful. I'm sure we got a glimpse of it again with Jesus' resurrection body. And our bodies will be restored. And when the Lord reclaims this earth, we'll be living on it with resurrection bodies. And he says, I want to participate with the resurrection from the dead. I don't want to be part of that. And I don't know about you, but that excites me to think that this body that's always frustrated me in some way. I've had diabetes since I was 14. I've had to battle it over all these years, that I won't have to battle that anymore, that I'll have a body that lives without diabetes. You say I'm wearing glasses, that I will live with a body that doesn't need correction for my eyes. And you can name a thousand other things. I've always been a klutz when it comes to athletics. I can't play basketball. I can't run fast. I've never been able to run fast. None of that stuff. I've been totally uncoordinated, but in my resurrection body, all those frustrations of being a klutz will be over. Now, I don't know about you. I think that's pretty exciting. And the limitations of our minds, that will be over. In this resurrection body, we're going to be able to understand things that we could not begin to grasp, not just mathematical formulas or different, remembering history and all. No, we'll understand God's creation the way he meant it for it to be, and the way he wanted us to learn it if Adam and Eve had not sinned. Well, God has plans for us. And Paul says, I want to know Christ. I want to understand more about him. I want to know what it's like to feel that power of his resurrection. I want to participate in his sufferings. And I want the promise of a mind and body that is glorified in Christ as he meant for me to be. That's something to think about. That's something to meditate about. That's something that we should hope for in Christ. God bless you.
All I once held dear, built my life upon. All this world reveres and wars to own. All I once thought gain, I have counted lost, spent and worthless now, compared to this. Knowing you, Jesus, knowing you, there is no greater thing. You're my all, you're the best, you're my joy, my righteousness, and I love you, Lord. Yeah. Now my heart's desire is to know you more, to be found in you and known as yours, to possess by faith what I could not earn, all surpassing gift of righteousness. Knowing you, Jesus, knowing you, there is no greater thing. You're my all, you're the best, you're my joy, my righteousness, and I love you, Lord. Oh, to know the power of your risen life, and to know you in your suffering, to become like you in your death, my Lord, so with you to live and never die. Knowing you, Jesus, knowing you, there is no greater thing. You're my all, you're the best, you're my joy, my righteousness. You're my all, you're the best, you're my joy, my righteousness. You're my all, you're the best, you're my joy, my righteousness, and I love you, Lord. You're my all, you're the best, you're my joy, my righteousness, and I love